Hi, Romesh Shivastu here, Editor-in-Chief, SightsIn Plus. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Please do subscribe this for the HR news, for HR updates, and conversation with the top-notch CHROs. Today, we are going to talk about the Web3 in human resources. And to discuss in detail, today we have Mr. Soumya Santu Sen. He is a renowned future of work and digital leader, and is also the founder of People Conscience. So, Soumya, nowadays the Web3 that is also one of the trending topic in the technology space. So would you please help us to understand that what exactly is the Web3?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely it's one of the hottest topic for the last few years for sure, but there are a lot of work happening. So if you think from the Web3 overall perspective, it's the entire internet revolution, right? So just to start with, like we are used to when the internet start, actually in 2000, in the beginning of 2000. So we know like when the people start using internet, we have that time like Web 1.0, where the art producer which create contents and the consumers are only consume, right? It's more like a read-only stage or static stage, right? Where the art producer were continuously producing that, and the consumers are only consume. They are not able to interact, right? So they are like most of the time like those are owned by the producer. They are all the e-commerce business starting at time like all benefits from the producer side, right? So all like is a one-way interaction, right, where that is only about consumption. So and we have seen like from there like slowly when the internet grown up, right, we moved to the Web 2.0, where currently we are still in the Web 2.0, where we can see there are a lot of involvement of consumer, not only to consume those and also to producing content from their side. Also the interaction goes higher, engagement goes higher. So we have seen the growth of the social media platform, like one of the biggest example of Web 2.0, where the consumer creates contents and definitely also communicate, interact, engage with other people. Started with the community part, right? We have seen the growth of the YouTube and Instagram, all those social channels where people are consuming, but also start getting, started gaining or earning from those type of content. So this is a huge change which we have seen from the Web 2.0. At the same time, we have seen the growth of the cloud computing on the starting of the software as a service. Like that's all part of the 2.0 part, right? Where consumer can subscribe to certain content or certain channels or certain people whom they follow, the influencers maybe, whom they are creating. These are something we have seen and which is still going, right? We are still in this stage. Web3 is like started like in already 10 months, so a few 10 years before when the 10, which is started, but it's a little bit more than Web 2.0, right? So where we have not only we can read, write, but we can also trust and own that part. So in Web 3 part, the major change of Web 3 is that like there is no concept anymore between producer and consumer, right? There is a concept about now community. Anybody can create content, can earn from it, can own this content. Like there is a concept of decentralizations, right? There is no one single ownership lies, right? That's the concept of the decentralization put into the Web3. There is no owners or one single owners or centrally owned by a big powerful bodies or powerful companies. Rather, it's owned by the community. All the contents, all the part are owned by the community. Anybody can produce, anybody can consume, right? There's like then that the technology of blockchain evolved, right, which is also part of the Web3. Like it's perfectly matched with addition of the decentralization part, right, where it can help. Interoperability is one of the biggest achievement of the Web3, and it's still growing. It's not something which we are still evolving. There's a lot of new concept coming around, the semantic wave, which has a new wave in the power of AI and both blockchain together. We have seen the tremendous growth of NFTs in the last few years, right? When anybody can create digital assets and they can earn, right? So they can sell it, right? So they can resell it. The growth of the cryptocurrencies, that's also part of one of the good opportunities. Smart contracts, decentralized applications, like these are one of the biggest, tremendously growing in the last few years. Tokenization is another one, which is part of Web3. You can actually hold and own a token, like, like small part of the entire asset. Maybe it's a digital asset, mostly it's digital asset, but we have seen like even there are companies, people who are actually selling real estate, real estate in also in a tokenization form. So data is growing in a different direction, and a lot of things happening. Still, we are in very early stage, I would say, but that's the evolution of internet evolution which is happening with Web3.
So you talked about the first generation internet, Web 1, then second generation of internet, that is the Web 2, and you also explained in detail about the Web 3, that what the benefits would be there. And you said that it is a decentralized online ecosystem kind of based on blockchain. So decentralized means who would be the owner in that case? If anybody can post there, anybody is the owner of that post, then who will manage that particular website on the internet?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a fair question, right? So who own it, right? And again, if you think from the technology side, you have to think from like what's running behind the internet. So usually when we have this Web 1.0 and 2.0 infrastructure, we have a concept of server and client, right? So anything like who produce, they are the managing their server, everything in the server, and then the client is only consumed from the server. That's a client, and a server client architecture which is used to work. Now with this Web3, I think the entire architecture is going to change, because that's utilizing the technology like blockchain, right? So blockchain is a concept where we have not the data and the transaction is not hold on one server or one node or one computer. Now you can think like there are thousands of computer, thousands of nodes scattered around the globe, right? Which is linked to each other, and the data and all the transactions actually owned by all of those nodes. It's based on the ledger, like distributed ledger technology, where any transaction is based on that. So it cannot be like one side is, it cannot be changed, right? You cannot change any transaction. Somebody goes in their server and change that. That's not possible, because every nodes hold that digital ledger technologies, those ledger, right? So all those transaction which is happening, all those interaction which is happening is passed through each of those digital ledger. It's owned by all those, hold in all of those nodes. And if there is a change and if there's a new transaction happen, each one of the nodes have to confirm. That's we call consensus, right? So this concession mechanism, there are different mechanisms, like there are different digital and blockchain technologies which is arriving. Like a lot of different companies started with Ethereum, which is the biggest one, but there are many others. Like we have different mechanism and are going there, but the concept is same. Like now each of these nodes hold those digital distributed ledger technologies. Any transaction which need to be happen and bypass to that. So now if you see like this architecture is changing with this blockchain, this is possible, right? So then it's owned, you can see like it's not owned by one person or one organization, it's owned by everyone. And the most important thing is that like the trust part, right? So where we have facing challenge today in Web2 technology, everything owned by the big companies, right? So we are talking about like Google part, right? Google knows everything. Everything knows about, because every single transactions, what is happening, even what we are seeing even in the web browsing, there's there in the Google. So this is not going to happen with Web3 and such infrastructure, right? Because it's not owned by somebody, right? They don't have the authority to change something or misutilizing those data or the transactions or the digital and identities which we have, they're getting from different people. That's the advantage. And so if you think from that perspective, who owns it and how it lays, it's actually owned by the community. And that's the part, like whoever taking part of this, in the entire Web3 landscape are also the owners, right? So from their own consumption, and in some cases they also own some of the tokenized part of the content or on the relevant data, because it's own, together with this community is a part of the infrastructure there. So the entire infrastructure is going to be different, if you think from the Web3 perspective. And that's why it's possible with this today, with this blockchain technology.
You shared very interesting part here that the Google company or Facebook kind of the sub companies. So a lot of data they collect from the Facebook and Google, and that is obviously some privacy issues also there, and also then they can sell the data for the advertisement purpose. So this would be protected if we start the Web3, this blockchain based the Web3 when we start.
Absolutely. So that's one of the major, I think, benefits, right? So the like today, if you think from the Web2, we don't own our own data, right? So this is owned by those big organizations, right? And the big companies, right? Who is managing all those data. When we think on the Web3 part, like this data is not owned by a single authority, rather by those who create those, right? In terms of my own data or my own content as well, right? In some respect. So there are definitely different concepts arising, like how we can manage those data privacy part and other things. So first important thing is we really don't need to share all of our data part to this entire architecture, right? So there's a concept called digital identity, which is currently a lot of organizations are working. So we can own our own all identity features on digital features, for even like think from our personal data perspective, or like our age, our sex, and all those different components is owned by us, right? We don't need, just we need to enter into that infrastructure, enter into that Web3 environment. We need to bypass the security layer, and that's coming with our digital identity, right? So we have to prove like, okay, I am the owner, like I am the right identity who is taking part in this community in this Web3 environment. And then we enter into that layer and then start interacting with the people, right? Again, I own this data. I am just using my data to, you can think like a very simple form, log into that environment, right? Consume, or I produce, I earn, like I interact, I engage, and then coming out of that, right? So you can think around that. So far, like, just a very simple example, like we are also thinking like, you think about like, we have this digital wallet concept, right? So when we have like currently there, like if you really want to do with any Web3 consumption, there is a concept like we have to log in through this digital wallet. So digital wallet is owned by the person who owns it. It's my data, I will own it. So I have my own digital wallet. I can use that digital wallet to log in into that environment. I can do any transactions. And then we have the concept of cryptocurrency. For any transaction we have to pay and then buy using those cryptocurrency part, because that's also running on the blockchain layer, right? And then when it's done, like I got it off, right? But currently in the Web2 technology, if you think like, everything, like if you really want to sign up into that, I can sign up using Google or Facebook. You have seen like that note, right? What is happening in the background? It's using the Google data on the Facebook data or the LinkedIn data, like whatever the platform like which you have to connecting to that application. Again, all those transactions we are doing in that application or particular browsing, it's then those data goes back to the Google and Facebook, because we have logged into that. We have not logged into our own thing.
Absolutely.
This is the biggest change of concept, right? So in terms of Web3, like I own my own data, I will liabilify my own, I will keep it to my extent, not to anybody else. I will just use it for my own transactions and different other cases.
You also shared an interesting part that is about the user interaction. So when we are using this Web 2, so you can see if you're reading the article, then you can see the similar articles are coming there with your interest. If you're clicking on an ad, you can see the similar ads are coming, and you can. So is it going to be more user interactive when we will start the use of Web 3?
Yes, definitely. The user experience will be totally different change, right? In that respect, right? So the interactions and engagement are higher. In the sense, like what is happening today, like currently, if you think the Web3 structure, they are still the consumer producer concept is still there, because it's still working on that client server mode, right? So there are definitely then some creators who are gaining, right? So for example, what is happening today with social media channels, they are creating their contents, and people are consuming, they are following, right? In that respect, definitely there are some engagement. And what will happen in this Web3 environment, like anybody can be a creator on that, right? So nobody is owned, right? So even I can create my own things, and we can consume on that part, right? And in the concept in Web3, there are also like the concept of tokenization is very, very powerful, right? So I'm not only just following an influencer or a creator in that respect, I'm also contributing to that, right? So for example, if I am engaging to those creators, I'm promoting their part, like I am also like following them part, like I also own, because as a fan or as a contributor, I'm also owning small token size of the entire creation part, right? So those create like those entities, like, or those assets which is owned by those creators are now owned by the community. So you can say like I created asset, but it's owned by my community. I maybe own most of the percentage of that asset by also giving some of the percentage to the community, to the fans, to the followers who are also helping me to grow, right? And this is a different concept, right? And then you can see that engagement will be different. It's just not like a engagement to follow, it's engagement also to get benefit, right? So every community, every members can benefit from those following up and those interaction and engagement. So that's the main idea about, like, how this Web3 should help. But if you ask, like, is it already happening? Maybe not in a high scale. So that's still a way to go, a long way to go, right? But this is definitely such a powerful thing. We can really make this big change forever.
So now somewhere coming to the HR. So how do you see it is going to help in HR?
Okay, so there are definitely a few cases where it can help in the entire HR landscape. It's already happening. So one of the powerful part is the payment, right? Especially on the payment part, because we know, like, today in the organization, like, a lot of organizations working with gig workers or the contractors, externals, and we have seen from the whole pandemic part, this has increased a lot, right? So people really like to work any part of the world and other things. But is it feasible if you think from the normal structure? It's not, actually, because there are always a challenge with the taxations and all those part. There is always difficult to remittance between different currencies and all those things. It's still there. There are also, like, a lot of vendors who are doing that, but it's very expensive to the organizations to manage that, in terms of managing those taxes and other things and all related things. With Web3, this is much easier in that respect, right? This is the one benefit, like, because you can actually pay to anywhere with those set of cryptocurrencies, because you don't have to bypass that. And then, like, there's a benefit, like, you don't have to pay those additional transaction with a central bank or some other bank authorities, paying that. So you will get whatever you are actually earning. Most of the things, the transaction fees are very low. But there are also, like, challenges in that respect, because this is growing for last few years. Because does it means, like, if we pay by those cryptocurrency, we don't have to pay tax, which is not right. So we still have to pay the taxes, right? But this is something which currently is not something regulated in every single country. And that's why you can see in many news, like, a lot of countries are now doing regulation checks, right? So it started even with, we have seen in India and US and big countries, all big countries have already started this. Like, there are some regulation checks. Even you have hold cryptocurrency, you have to pay taxes. So these are coming up, right? So this is under building for sure, but it doesn't mean, like, you have to pay tax. But I think easy to manage, I would say, from the organization perspective. That's a huge benefit, like, especially when you have so many gig workers and other external workers in place working any part of the world. That's one of the big benefit, in terms of the payments, and from the managing the payroll part. Another benefit, which is, you can see, like, in terms of the from the trust perspective, because we have seen, especially in the talent acquisition market, we have seen a lot of fraud, candidates and even fraud employees, right? We have seen, like, employee background check or candidate background check is a big question, because even candidates are applying for the job, they are not the right fit skill, they are not doing there are a lot of fraud cases are happening. So what the Web3 and the blockchain technology can do is the verification of their credentials, especially on their education, on their skills, even on the CVs we have seen. So those can be really managed to that environment. So as I shared in the before, right? So blockchain technology has such a power, like, if some transaction is already recorded, that transaction cannot be changed, right? So what happened, like, nobody can do those fraud part in terms of when applying for the job or even for the employee. So those employee background check, like candidates background check, in terms of their credential verification of their education, of their previous employment, even their skills, that much easier, right? In terms of more trustable, right? You can really avoid those disruption from the fraud cases and other. So that's a huge benefit. And moreover, like, it's also a huge benefit for the employer branding perspective, right? So that's a huge attractiveness for the talent, like, because currently, like, if you think from the organization perspective, they are very strict in terms of their attracting talent, in terms of how they can work, in terms of like, future of perspective, where they can work, how they can work, how much they can work, how they're going to pay them, right? Those will be a huge benefit into employer benefit to attract talent, because anybody can work from anywhere. It's very easy. And for the employer perspective, it's also easy, like, they can really trust those credentials because it's verified by the blockchain technologies and other. So that's I think a win-win case in both sides, right? So it's a huge advantage, definitely, from that Web3 environment.
So if I try to summarize, you talked about the payroll, that it has the best use for the payroll, some contract management because the blockchain is there, some talent acquisition for the talent pool because the blockchain. So data, where the data you are using the data, where you are having the data. So the Web3 is going to help you there.
Right.
how do you see it is because we are also talking about the metaverse. So that is also in discussion. So do you think is there any correlation here when we talk about the Web3, and how to differentiate here when we talk about the use of metaverse and this Web3 in HR?
Yeah, absolutely. Like metaverse is definitely one of another big buzzword which is coming in for last 2 3 years, right? Especially last year, it was like huge boost in terms of the metaverse. So metaverse is also very much related to Web3, but it's not directly, it's should not, right? It's not must. It's metaverse can work without Web3 and also with Web3. Like there definitely benefit with to go with Web3, but it can also work without Web3. So that's the big difference. So it's not interdependent totally, right? So metaverse is the next generation of internet, right? So it enable creators to deliver connected immersive experience, based on activities, right? You have seen like the whole virtual world people can do. You can do the buying, they can directly buy, they engage, they can put their contents, they can visit events. Like we have seen even the music events, there are a lot of things happening already, right? And that part, but it must not connect it to the Web3 part. Like what we have seen, and also like a lot of debate is currently going around. But the actual benefit of metaverse will come when it's actually connected with a decentralized way. Like the decentralized metaverse makes sense, again, because if it's again owned by certain entities, and the same challenge will come, right? So it's owned by somebody, and then the problem with the data ownership, problem with those benefits coming, everything goes to that particular entities or the bodies, right? So if you can really truly get advantage of the metaverse, it should be like interlinked with the Web3, like in the same concept, right? So metaverse is just the environment and experience, and it has multiple layers. Like the experience layer is the biggest one, and then the creator economy, and then it has like very strong technological part, like infrastructure related to like new infrastructure related to the human interface or spatial computing and other, like which are currently still undergoing a lot of research, and things are happening there. But definitely that's one of the big benefit, to go with Web3 and metaverse, but it's not directly linked. It can be done also without Web3.
So, Sona, I think we tried to cover what is the Web3 and how we can differentiate with the first or second version of the internet, and also what are the use cases of the Web3 in human resources. Anything else would like to share, which we did not touch here, and that is important?
Yeah, so important in the sense like there are definitely different concepts coming around, like so, and a lot of things happening. Like so, Web3 definitely. I will add two things here. Like Web3 also provide new opportunity to monetize. On different there are different business model or earning model. Like we have seen like play to earn, right? So which is a huge growth. So people like their gamers are playing the games and they are earning cryptos. To once they complete their milestone or getting around it, we have seen a tremendous growth in that area. And from that, like we have seen like other monetized platform like learn to earn. You can also start earning cryptos using learning, and there are different concepts like participate to earn or create to earn. So that's another new concept which is coming around in different business model with Web3. One of this like how we can provide opportunity to earn to everyone inside the community. Like even I can participate, I can earn, I can invest, I can earn, I can contribute, I can earn, right? So this is something which is coming. And we have seen like from there are a lot of startups like on this Web3 are currently trying to leverage those business model, and then the concept of DAO, which is a decentralized automate organization, right? So where we don't need a dedicated typical organizations, right, to work on. Rather, a decentralized organization is a concept where you have a core contributors, then you also have network contributors and some token holders, right? So it's such type of concept is coming. Again, it's a huge topic again, but these are some of the new areas which are like a lot of people are startups and companies are exploring, right? So it could be also a huge benefit in future. We don't think like you don't work for a organization, rather you work for a DAO, like a decentralized organization, and I can participate, I can do like different forms, and I can earn my own way. But are we ready with all this? That's the main question, like a lot of people ask also during the conversation. And I would simply say maybe no, right? Especially with the regulatory part, and especially with the legal consequences, it's not still clear. So not because to make it ready, and if it's really think from the global perspective, all the regulatory norms to be ready with each and every country, which is not there. Like a lot of countries still don't have a regulatory norms for their managing those Web3s and cryptocurrencies and all those different concepts like DAOs, right? It's still going around, like, and this gives also things foggy, right? So we are not sure everything is right or wrong. We have seen like a lot of fraud also happening with cryptocurrencies, like a lot of fake things are happening with also with NFTs, which has grown also last few things. So these are the current challenge I think the whole ecosystem is facing with this, currently of this missing part. And so that's why I say like it may take some long time, to have an actual mass adoption of such things. But this is definitely a good opportunity to think people should aware like what is it, right? Because this is definitely going to be our future. If we see, like, we don't know yet, maybe 10, 15 years, 20 years, we don't know when will it happen, but this is going to happen in future, but it will take a long time to actually revolutionize.
Thank you so much, Sampu, for joining the conversation and sharing your wonderful thoughts.
Thank you so much, Ramesh.